Welcome back. So, we're going to talk about over here. This area, Pacific Northwest, specifically to do with Ice Age floods. So I was watching this video, episode Z, because Jerome Lessman was in it. I really haven't watched the totality of the series, but this is a Nick Zentner A to Z series. This is final one. It had Jerome Lessman. I was watching it. Apparently, Jerome Lessman and Joel Gumbiner, pardon me, Jerome and Joel are working on a paper that's in peer review right now, where they shared this information. So this, for reference, notice the shape of this here, and this going across and down. This is up here. So it starts up in this area and goes down to this boundary here. It's basically there. And then going over here to this boundary. So what's really odd about this is it doesn't really fit the traditional narrative that has been applied to the floods in this area that are, like if we go to Missoula flood. Like, they're basically related to waters in glacial Lake Missoula that then flow out of Montana westward into the area in question. But this is up here, and if we look at it, like they're going generally in a direction. They're not like west to east, east to west kind of trending. They really look like they're coming from up here and then fanning out, generally speaking. It doesn't really fit the traditional narrative, which I thought that was interesting, that there was evidence of some kind of inflow here. And if you've seen my videos, so this video is going to be related to Baja BC topics, videos. I've been regularly referencing this path here, like Sage Wall as well. It's very related to a lot of things, Montana, Bighorn Basin area. Just all sorts of stuff where this current flow has this continuous straight path etching through here all the way back here, and then bending a little bit in this area. Like it's not going straight over here, it's actually going this way now, over this way, over here. It's not Noticeably, it's not a riverbed anymore. It's flowing more this way. Just a change in the terrain over here. And then kind of disappearing in this region. But if we just follow it across, it essentially reaches the boundary of these mountains. And it goes to this area. So I've been saying there's some general current trend that's flowing in this way and then wrapping around here, down this way, and then branching off over here into all these branches, but continuing forward through Flathead Reservation, through this area, across this way, over here where it runs into other pressures and vibrates down. So this got me thinking, basically. So I thought I'd make an episode about what it got me thinking about. The first things first is I agree if this data is real, which I'm sure it is there's an inflow from here. So it actually is not what I thought it was. I just kind of accepted that there was a flow over here and went from there, but it looks like evidence shows there's a flow over here. So I was just kind of looking at this last night while I was watching this, just looking at the map, and I noticed, and maybe I'm cheating or something, I don't know. But I noticed, like, if we go over here and kind of follow this way, there's another arc here, maybe starting up there. Generally speaking, another arc. So notice this arc has, I believe this is Moses Coulee here in this area. So it's got a arc with a channel outlet. And then it's got seemingly another arc past it here with what I kind of interpreted as another channel outlet here in the like central area of the arc. Like the furthest away from this point is generally around here. And there's an outlet there. And then around here is another outlet. And then down here, if we follow this way over, across here to here, and just follow this way, up here to basically Spokane. And there's another outlet here. So I drew this in this thread. So this is a Twitter post by one of the authors, Joel. And I said, amazing find, but then you can read it if you want. I drew this here, just kind of, hey, is this like a thing that maybe is like related? Like maybe it doesn't end here, basically was what I was thinking. Maybe it actually kept going to a point where it created another arc here with another outlet channel around here, and another arc, third arc, with an outlet channel here, and then another general arc that's like the boundary, all of this. And then when I was looking, I haven't drawn this, but I was like, what if like over here too, like the boundary here this way generally is another arc related to over here, where maybe it pushed materials to like compile them and shape them into larger mounds, kind of like the end of if something is pushing and able to push, but then it runs into resistance, then in front of it, it will compile an actual mound. So if it's doing it in a more complex way, maybe it would compile mountains with all the nuances of this stuff going on. Then there's another arc here. I was thinking maybe that's related, or generally across here related to there somehow. And if we look down here at the Grand Canyon area, there's this stretch that maybe, I don't know. I'm just spitballing some of these like ones I didn't draw. I'm just kind of spitballing more so than the other ones. Those ones that I think maybe have some credence. This one, I'm just pointing out, there's this path where there's generally a boundary, but so if we follow this boundary down to the Grand Canyon area here and go across and just continue across to like maybe here, like another arc here that starts around the base of the southern region of the Sierra Nevada batholith. That generally, if we go up here and go across, has a boundary there, and maybe straight down to there, where there's like physical relationships that maybe have some merit. I don't know. Thought I'd just point that out real quick. But these ones, I feel, these three, maybe this green one after that, like this one, I'm not completely sure. I haven't thought about it that much. Then I drew these, and I was like, So if we go back here, I didn't bother to save these images, so that's why we're looking at this Twitter thread. But it is current coming in. I put teal, and then I put fuchsia blue, or aqua, fuchsia blue, lime green in these, like, in this sequence. And if we look at this, like, imagine the teal. Start with the teal inlet here, and then that boundary where this area is over here, and go back. So if we go back, so let's kind of do that. We can do it at this angle too. Just follow back. So here's that arc, here's the area in question, but if we just follow it back and assume, like, if there's some kind of fanning here, that would suggest there's a current here going southward, which would suggest there's a current here going southward, and so on. So if we kind of just follow it back through this stuff, it goes to around here, as well as like branching over. So I was thinking maybe it like made its way from this main conduit sideways like this to this conduit, but then like over here it went this way between here, and went over here, went down this way, over this way, probably some other places. I was kind of looking around, like, if you see the elevation under me, 2400, 1600, 17, 18, 16, 17, so it's kind of high, whereas if we go over here, this actually has like 550, so it's much more like possible that if this had a lot of water flowing through it, it could overflow without etching the, like, deep down to a point where there's an actual river path, as well as flowing here, like over this way through here, and just like making its generally making its way to over here. I'm not exactly sure which path. That's why I drew a bunch of paths, even going around this block, like out this way and around it, through here, over this way. So if we go back here, there's like a path this way we can follow over to here, and then we see paths this way, over to there, over this way. So there's all sorts of like a web of these current paths that we can follow, like back over this way, over here, along this way, generally along here, although there's not like a definitive pathway, like if we follow it closely. This way is pretty good up to here and then over here, but then it runs into this seemingly, so it looks like it maybe runs into it, goes around it this way, around it this way. Maybe goes up there and through here, and makes its way over here in part. As well as of note is this path coming off of this main, what I call an artery, where the rest are more like veins, like a main artery. This whole thing, this straight path, suddenly has this branching path off of it this way that makes its way over here in a relatively straight line. So all the way to here, where then it fans out into this region, which I guess is Vancouver. But if we follow it back and continue this straight line, even though there's not a connection, there's a straight boundary over here that looks related. That generally can be followed to the far side here. And I didn't I didn't like particularly describe in this why that's there, but we'll get to that at some point. But if we follow this path, mainly here, there's a branch off there that perhaps went this way and around here, and so there's a bunch of paths through here basically, as well as a path off of this fuchsia segment. So I basically realized this path kind of reaches the boundary. So we go back here to this circular thing, or semicircle boundary. There's this path here coming in that then generally cuts across and like right at this boundary. It's almost like this maybe ran into the current flowing down and like pushed it back, like flowed out and pushed the boundary just above where it's flowing out to hold this side boundary here. More so than actually flowing into this region, it looks like it participated in holding this region's boundary so that it had like a certain, rather than like starting down here, let's say. It started like right after or right before this one was applying a cross current that was causing resistance to current flowing across. So then there's this like turbulent region that interacted with the ground more and led to more buildup in the structures we see there more so. That's kind of what I was thinking. But similarly, there's not like a river path here like this, but if we look through here, maybe there is. Like over here, 1100, 900, 800, 580, 687, 9,000. So basically in this region, there's a valley. There's a valley cutting through this whole stretch here, even though there's not like clearly water. Maybe there's water, but for sure, here's water. Okay, there is water, although it's pretty meandering. Okay, there's water. Yeah, so there's even water. So there's a path here, this way, all the way back to over here and even beyond, and connecting back to over here generally to this area where these flows are coming through. So I was thinking the current that flows in is almost like a coaxial cable kind of shape. Like this kind of thing, but with a rounded end. Like if this white one had a rounded end, and then this one had a rounded end around that, and then this one had a rounded end around all that, where it's like a tube that has an outer crust entirely kind of thing. Where maybe there's like the main conduit to this area through here. That's kind of like the central cable of the coaxial cable. The central, like the wire itself. And then like a boundary to that segment that's restricted by this side and over here by that one, so that it like fits between them, like ends near where this is coming out, and then ends where this is coming out. And then we have another like segment that basically ends where this one's coming out instead of this one, over here where this one is. And then over here there's another path over here where presumably water was making its way also like across this way somehow to that general boundary to maybe participate in also creating, or that boundary, to participate in also creating a boundary here. Or maybe something to do with this block of mass, like protecting it and holding like this side resistance over here. I haven't like deduced, say, in what I'm considering why this is there. And instead of just following this trend like over here, like this segment doesn't follow this trend. It sticks out, it protrudes kind of like a chakra. Why exactly it would do that, I'm not completely certain. Maybe, I don't know. Haven't really thought about it that much. But the point is, if we go back here, that's why like this teal has this boundary, this teal has this boundary. I guess I could maybe theoretically suspect that there's some threading of this back over to this region, like, because it generally points at it over here. So if there's current flowing this way, even though some of it drains out here, it takes a right turn in its progression, so maybe its momentum managed to cut through somewhere, like going through this way, that goes to there, but going through some other way, it doesn't, maybe like a crossover into here, I don't know, somehow getting over there. Maybe just the pressures over here, even though it goes out here, it generally went back this way. Created these little segments, but then made its way back to over here through one of those paths. Let's see, is there a similar thing going on with this one? Here down to here. I mean, there's again this mass. Or no, here over this way to here. I don't see a similar thing there. This side generally has the currents over here. It's like a boundary. So maybe like the presence of a mass there. And a mass there, where maybe this arc is more so here and here, like two boundaries, I don't know. But so creating these boundaries so that when current generally goes through, it runs into cross currents. Mind you, I was thinking, like, if a current's flowing, let's say, down this way, and let's say, according to the Missoula flood kind of interpretation, flowing out this way, or whichever way it gets over here, possibly over this way, whichever way it gets over generally to here, from generally over there, then it would create a cross current that seemingly would go in this type of path, but then because this current is flowing out here and fanning out, like it's initially flowing down this channel, but then it reaches a point where it can fan out, and it does, and then it fans out some more, so it's basically flowing into this whole area here, and then if there's a cross current, it would most easily like cross it by going along the boundary. So rather than going like through this area where there's all this current pushing into it, it really preferentially goes along the mountains, is what I was thinking. Like it's going along here, along the mountains, and then this other cross current kind of pushes it back down, goes over along the mountains, and then it reaches where this one's going, and it goes up and around it and down and this way, as well as probably where this one's going. It also goes down into these channels, I guess, and like probably across here. I think there's something to it, but let's keep going. So this image I thought was really pretty exciting. I thought this was a good, like, compelling image to me. And then I continued for the sake of drawing this still. I added this picture, but really it's more so for this aqua one. Going across, notice it bends in this region, so it's almost like if current's going this way, out that way, but pressure from over here that's physically filling the entire area with water, like an eddy current here, that's pressuring, like when it reaches the nucleus where the disk of it is the widest, the most pressure is present, so it like interacts there in this area and bends the current over this way, deflects it. So that's what's going on there. And then, so let's just follow this just one more time. Starting down here from just the furthest east one at Flathead Reservation, up this way, up this way, up this way, up this way. Generally, it looks like it branches in a couple, but generally across here, continues across this way. So it looks like it might bend back a little bit here. Possibly because the pressure's over in this region. Like pressures up here, call it like the current's flowing, and then it runs into pressures here the most, where it bends it a little bit more back, and then it passes the pressures in this area and cuts across it here and fans out more. But keeps going, keeps going, keeps going, keeps going, keeps going, cuts across this way, across this way, across this way, across this way. Hopefully you can see that, what I'm pointing at. Cross here, cross here, cross here, cross here, and then maybe even bends. I didn't notice this. Maybe hard bend. More back this way to over here. Huh. I didn't notice that hard bend there. And that it continues with that sort of pattern there at this corner. Maybe some of it goes across a top and goes out this way. Mind you, these are flood currents, not just the Missoula flood or any flood, the flood that were shaping the Earth during its Earth's expansion process, which began 541 million years radiometric dating to the Holocene, but was really the flood that shaped the Earth, cut it into continents, caused those continents to expand and new ocean floor to form that then allowed for this water to retreat from the continents. But the flood was shaping the entire globe, and current flows can be traced. So it looks like possibly, like there's definitely a western boundary that's generally here. It kind of goes out there too, but generally here and down this way. Generally goes around here too, but generally down this way. Down this way, down this way, down here. So there's kind of like a neck of current, a width. That's the whole width here, but even though it's the whole width, it's a bending current. Like it's going around a bend, either from this side and around the bend, or even maybe from this side and bending, more hard bend. Possibly as it approaches here. So as I was mentioning before, there's a current going down this way. which I have interpreted to be this is an inlet location where current was flowing generally this way into this location and on top of the continent, where then it etched like this inlet channel to have the nuances that are here, as well as just the shape of like a V shape where the current went in and just influenced that V-shaped region, kind of like over here, like the way it's forming an indentation. It didn't flow so much atop of this region as it did along the sides of this region, which made the chakra structure. But then it flowed into resistance, where then it bends and then runs towards the Hudson Bay, but runs into the currents over here that are essentially resisting it. So bends again and goes down this way and across. At the very least, like influences the current over here to have a branching off current going that way, whether or not it's directly interacting or transmitting through the mountains somehow or something. I don't know. Probably over top the mountains. Possibly they weren't entirely there. I don't know. But, yeah, that's really, I did not notice this corner. I gotta look at this a little bit. Right there. Strongly suggests there's some relationship to right here. Like an inflow coming through here, across this way, across here, and then bending. Another current generally flowing in down here, in this area, maybe here. It's hard to say. The boundary seems to be pointing more to this area. But flowing in there and going, essentially forming like a width of current that, because it bends, like if you're in a car and you turn, your body's gonna go with the momentum to the side that you were like driving. So this car of current is going generally eastward, but then it bends generally southward. So when it bends, it starts to apply an uneven pressure where the water pushes to the side where it's bending, which then leads to it to begin to etch this conduit that gets more and more pronounced until it really builds up current and etches through and just starts cutting through and then branching off, possibly even some kind of rolling type thing where it's not just going like straight like this, it's actually doing like a circulation as it approaches down here. I don't know if that would be necessarily happening, just a thought. As well as this boundary, if we just follow across this way, instead of bending and just continue it straight, it generally goes into this area. So it's my interpretation that this current generally went over here and pushed this boundary so that this region exists. Like if we look at this, like if we generally follow here, the mountains should be kind of more here, but they're pushed to the side, which indicates they formed some reason not here, but over here. And my thought is because there's a current that was flowing across here that was then like running into resistance and bending and staying in this area, but because it was running into resistance, it really influenced this area to then have this little indentation in the Rockies in this hard corner, like generally 90-degree angle here, or whatever degree bend. So we got a current going down through there that then reaches over here and seems to have flowed out of this channel, according to this. So I thought I'd share. Let's see what else I just already talked about that. Here's the path I drew, although we just realized there's a bend here. Somewhere around here. Where it bends abruptly over to like here. Which kind of makes sense just looking at this one, which also bends abruptly. Like this abrupt bend. It's straight, abrupt bend. Which is related to current flowing up this way into here in Baja BC stuff, and currents flowing from the angel structure. I don't want to get into details too much about this. Hopefully this works. Why is it not loading? Okay, maybe we can just look at this, I guess. This structure down here's Fiji. Before the Earth expanded, while it was expanding, this structure was forming at like the epicenter of colliding currents just between South America at Western Ecuador in the bay there that I forget the name, is essentially where this was, and it was projecting a current up this way that cut the Ontong Java Plateau and Manihiki Plateau and Hikurangi Plateau into segments because it formed as one unit, cut them apart and slice them and then move them apart from one another by fanning out like this. But the current went up this way, ran through Baja California, took Baja California materials and displaced them up here in this region, but it ultimately like had a pressure point right here, which is why it's shaped like that and why the mountains abruptly bend. So it was applying a pressure this way, which then had a current flowing here that abruptly bends after it gets past that. It gets past this, goes over, but then there's this current flowing down this way, so it basically bends down between the two and takes this channel between them and goes doop boop, goes like that. But it looks like it even bends here potentially. Not sure exactly why there wouldn't be like structure here if it's bending. Like why I wouldn't push up mountains here, pretty much. It must have run into other water currents, so maybe there's another, like a wider current here that's flowing across here that then divides. So current that goes down this channel is generally like a certain width, and then current that flows over this way is a certain width, and it manages to actually interact with this current and join it and go over this way and around, while like sort of forming a boundary between them in this area with all these structures, but still getting through, but like participating in having a bend here, but not mountains, because the whole width is like one current dividing. That seems plausible, that there is a current divide at play that's flowing in here. Across, as some of it gets across here and just joins this other current that's flowing this way, that then runs into this other current between them, builds mountains, bends the current to then go down this way, while some of it joins it, as well as like is running in over here, but creating a wall between the currents until it can get in down here, kind of like over here, like a current flow across with a current flow down that's running into it and creating a wall, but then it gets through at a point. Similarly up here, where there's a wall of this cross current and this other cross current interacting here, but then it gets through this opening like Moses Cooley, and just larger scale. Bends over here, this other side cuts across and kind of vibrates, pushing out this boundary. Staggering this over, probably also helped by this current flowing across, pushing this boundary. Even though it comes in here, it gets pushed across and over this way, while this extends the boundary here. And then essentially there's just too much pressure over here, to a point where like there wasn't enough pressure here to make it so this current couldn't bend into it. Like this pressure overwhelmed this pressure this far away from this pressure, because it is a huge eddy of water, but near the center, like if you're trying to push into this water, it's higher and higher pressure outward, and near the boundary it's not as much pressure, so it could push it inward somewhat, but then it's into that pressure, so it's like takes a new path and kind of follows this region here, goes down here, goes into Bighorn Basin, goes over here, and does all these things we've talked about in other videos. Where exactly this is coming from, I don't know. I was thinking in a previous video recently that current went around the Himalayas, and because of this shape, it kind of suggests that it went across here, through here, through here. Possibly runs into resistance around this island before it like segmented away, so it like bends over this way across Russia, possibly at like this width ish, like here. flows out of Russia, generally here, into Alaska. Because these were probably in that position at that point, even though the process began at 541 million radiometric dating, when Alaska, the portion that was already there, was more up here. So it wouldn't have actually fed from here into here, because Alaska, it would have had to go like this way. But I think at some point along the line, this flow in here was probably coming from Russia, and maybe even there was like a steady current around that way that was going along some other area, but then Alaska moved in the way, so it just got the current into Alaska, which then interacted more so than it was prior. I'm not completely sure where that current's coming from. It's not like it's coming out of the ocean and just sweeping across like that. I guess it could have, like, as the ocean formed, like, went around this way some reason and just up this way along this boundary, ramped here, and went in here. I'm not sure. I'd have to think about it. I think that's about all that I had to say. Let's see, is this working? I guess they're doing stuff. That site's sometimes down. Magnetic anomaly map site. This one. This map. Another episode I watched today was about Bonneville Flood, which reaches all the way up here. It's over here. Reaches all the way over here, though. It's not really... I don't think it's related to this current, although maybe. Because I'm fairly certain there's a current coming this way up here that this current runs into head on, pretty much, and then they kind of reach a balance. But so it's possible that, like, in this area here, there's like a wall that forms. So if we look at my, instead of me talking, if we just look at this, here's the Bonneville Flood. I have it going up this way and then bending, generally from currents over here, flowing into it. Even though that's the Columbia River basalt in teal there, the yellow also extends down here and interacts, and like this orange interacts, and like it's definitely interacting here, so it probably holds a boundary to swirl water here against the mountains and basically create a higher elevation zone that then, when it drains out, drains back and interacts, possibly even like as it's filling, the currents are flowing in and creating a higher elevation of water, but it's literally draining simultaneously. That then causes like a replenishment and a almost like galactic arm reaching all the way over there to then interact with this other water. I didn't watch it that closely to have much more thought. I just thought it was interesting that it spanned over there. There's another eddy over here also. Eddy that's centered on Hudson Bay. Eddy centered on Michigan. Then I didn't draw this, but this system's pressure extends over here, which is really why these things are happening where they happen is an interaction of all these things. Like this bends, or the current passing stage wall bends here. I forget which one I thought it bent. I was fairly certain it bent at like the center of this eddy here, but I don't think that's correct now. Maybe it bends where this pressure is the most, because there's definitely a current generally going around here that flows out here along this flow path and goes over here and over here and over here, transporting literally the Appalachians as they're decayed by this process. It takes the zircons and all the particles that it breaks down out of the Appalachians, transports them across this way over here, where then it gets caught up in this and layers this region with Appalachian zircons that are found all over the place in the western United States, even found like up here somewhere in Canada. Believe like over here. Like they're found too far away where they had to be transported there by ancient river systems. But that really was a system that went this way, down here and over here, and cut into a current that was flowing up this way, that then led them to be deposited over here, which then led for zircons from Appalachians all over the place. They're even down like over here somewhere. Somewhere in South America, I found zircons as well from the Appalachians. In a technical paper, I didn't find them, but I looked in technical papers and found zircons all over the place from the Appalachians, because there's current flows. So there's probably similar things here in this current flow that could be like finessed out of the data and found in certain ways that are maybe not noticed in terms of like where this water is sourced from. Maybe they brought some zircons from there. Like if it came from, say, down here and around, then maybe there's some zircons from the Himalayas that made their way like all the way over to this region, for example. I don't know. Okay, dudes. That's about all I got to say for this one. I got a couple topics. I think I gotta talk about nebula and shallograms, and just shallograms. And then I got an impact structure that I really wanted to talk about in a single episode. So I got a couple episodes in mind. I gotta do them though. It's on the plus side, I got some episodes in mind. I just sometimes I'm like, what am I gonna record about? Do I want to record? Like, no, that's a lot of the time. Do I even feel like it? Day passes. Well, could have recorded. I was thinking today, like there was a time I was recording every day. Like as soon as I saw something, I was like, oh shit, I just saw this thing. Here's my thoughts on it, and look at how it influences my research further. And like, boom, boom, boom. But then I just have a bunch of episodes that are just building up, but at the same time, like, it's not like it's bad episodes. Like, I'm making discoveries that are relevant and real and will stand the test of time. Maybe not every one of them is valid, and time and people like bothering to figure out what's actually true and what is missing details will be necessary, but that's really interesting. location there. Just thinking, does it like have a where this bends? Maybe some like thin thread, because that points right at it, right? Oh no. From here. There's even an opening right there where it's less mountainous, although the mountains are still going not that direction. I just wonder if there's almost like a current that reaches over and like grabs in to this region, so that even though there's another current going this way, it doesn't get like dislodged and it actually keeps flowing and goes in over here. Just by looking at that, like the details to be accounted for. Looks like there's a current going in here. Bending there. Whoa. Whoa. What if a current went over here, through here, and then a current came in through this way and physically went above that to about here, where then it went back down and influenced this region? Because this is strange. It almost... Is it continuous? Like, it kind of looks like it's not continuous. Like this. Like, how are those related? They almost look like multiple current paths. I haven't really looked over at these types of details. It definitely looks further south over here, but not that much up here. Some crazy stuff going on over here, that's for sure. Okay, before I just drag this on, looking around, babbling, just dragging it on. This isn't long enough. I need 2-hour videos for no reason. Alright, see you guys. Peace out. Thanks for watching. Till next time.